Hi, Bill Vales here, and I'm here to tell you about an exciting new show that we've been working on at LCTV. The name of the show is Your Backyard. And on Your Backyard, we're going to take you through all the conservation trails that are in Littleton. And our guide for this is going to be the Guide to Conservation Land of Littleton, Mass. And this book was put out by the Littleton Conservation Trust, written by Art Lazarus, a longtime Littleton resident and geologist. We're very excited about this show, and we'd like you to sit back, relax, and let's see where your backyard takes you today. Well, we're going to take a walk through a relatively new member of the Littleton Conservation Trails, and it's Bumblebee Meadows, and it's right off of Harwood Ave, right across from Bumblebee Park. And I forget the acreage of this area. However, it's a meadow environment. Somewhat riparian too off to the side because there is a stream that runs through it. I don't believe there's a well-developed trail system here, so I'm going here for the first time, so come on along. Well, as I said, there are no trails, and sure enough, there are no well-defined trails here. One may ask after reading the sign, where's the meadow? Where's the meadow? Well, the trees behind us are really fairly young, 15 years maybe max. So it's not hard to visualize that without trees, this was a meadow environment because there is some grasses over here. And I'm walking towards, very gingerly because I don't want to be up to my knees in muck, what looks like the riparian environment that I'm getting closer to. So here I go over here. I need to check for ticks when I get back, but we can see here a pretty healthy growth of cattails. You see the beautiful cattails, and they're probably 7 feet high, thereabouts. We have a lot of young trees over here that some look fairly stressed out, and that may be a result of the area going to a wetter environment, that some trees just don't like a lot of moisture. This would be a great place for birding, seeing perhaps American bittern here, great blue heron. I could envision seeing a lot of them here. A good area for various songbirds, warblers. This is a nice area, but again, there's not a well-developed set of trails, so I'm going to slog through a little more here. Don't know if there's any snakes around here. I'll bet there are. Boy, it smells very like there's a lot of vegetation and standing water here. I'm seeing a number of birds over here. I hear some clucking. Here's some clucking. Looking up here. Psst, psst, psst. Whoa, right overhead. myrtle warbler. Fall migration, myrtle warbler. Psst, 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 psst. You may ask, how did you know that was a myrtle warbler? Okay, and that's a reasonable question. The reason I knew that was a myrtle warbler is, number one, we're in fall migration season. So we're going to see a lot of birds coming through that we may not normally see throughout the year, although myrtle warblers do tend to be around here. But the very distinctive feature of the myrtle warbler is it has a yellow rump on it, and when it flies you can see a little patch of yellow on it. And the myrtle warbler is also known as the yellow-rumped warbler, and when it flew by it just had a very distinctive field mark of that yellow rump. So that was a yellow rump warbler. So that's how I knew what that was. So I'm going to walk a little further. And warblers are very difficult to identify. One, they don't stay put very long. And particularly in the fall, the warblers and birds in general, they're losing their plumage. They're very bright plumage that predominantly the males had during the spring and summer, and they're going to a very drab sort of plumage, and it makes them very, very difficult to identify. But fortunately, that yellow-rumped warbler had a little bit of a yellow rump. So here we go. These swamp maples make for a beautiful fall scene. Boy, just some beautiful areas here. Oh, we have something up here. We have beaver activity up here. We have a beaver. Okay, well, we've come upon some beaver activity here. You can see right here in front of me, there's the work of a busy beaver, right? You can see where they've been working here. I don't see any chips down here. Well, no, I take that back. I do see chips. Okay, and they're just under the cover of the recent leaves, so I'd say that was fairly recent work, at least through the early fall. And they make this very distinctive mark here, and they chew all the bark off. And this really adds to another myrtle warbler up here. This really adds to the area becoming a little wetter, because the beavers are going to be damming up the area. So they're going to build a beaver dam, which is going to hold some water behind it, making the area a little wetter. And if we look over here, we see a beaver lodge. And that looks pretty good size. I'm going to try to get a look at it. Okay, we've made our way to the Beaver Lodge, and here it is. Probably 15 feet in diameter, maybe even more, 5 feet high, and the beavers are working very hard piling wood up. We can see all around here they're cutting down all these trees. We can see the trees in various states of being taken down. And this is definitely going to have an effect on the movement of water, because building a dam is going to cause water to dam up in an area and not flow to other areas. So this might be the closest I've ever been to a beaver dam. Now, if Mark wasn't putting a lot of pressure on me to finish this up, I might be inclined to stay here for an hour or so, have a coffee, and see if a beaver comes out, because it's a pretty good hunch there's beavers that live in a beaver lodge, okay? This is really really quite a surprise. I was not counting on running into this today. Now, a beaver is a pretty large member of the rodent family, and a distinctive feature about a beaver that I remember when I was camping in an area once was that when they dive, you can hear a slap, and that slap is from them slapping their tail in the water as they propel underneath. So if you are in an area such as this, big hint, Beaver Lodge, and you start hearing, you know, a slap, look over in that area, and you're probably going to find a beaver. Something I should say. What's that little warbler over there? Okay, let's get back on focus. Something else I should say about beaver activity, and that's a very contentious sort of things of how beavers change the formation of our water. Sorry, okay. But what beavers do provide are great nesting areas for great blue herons, okay? Now, here's the linkage to that. Here's the linkage. Beaver builds a dam, okay? A beaver floods out an area where there may be tall pines. Those trees die. All of a sudden, those trees are now cleared off, and they make wonderful nesting areas for things like great blue herons. And there's a lot of areas right around here that you could see. There's one right along Route 2 in Littleton that at one point housed about 45 heron nests right around Route 2. And it was the result of beavers damming up an area, killing the trees, and then the herons occupied the trees until the trees died. And then once the trees die, the heron rookery is no more. This is a delightful area. You know, some people say, oh, it's a swamp. These are great places to find birds and wildlife. I'm really getting distracted here. Okay, let's look on. Wonderful. Okay, just looking at this little pathway here, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put it together, where we have a large beaver lodge right here, and then over on this side we have trees that are being cut down all over the place. But this looks like the trackway of where the beavers are walking. Now there's leaves that are filling the holes, so I'll disturb them a little bit, but I suspect that the beavers are walking from that area through this area. They're a quadruped, so they're walking on 4 legs. They're dragging a large tail, so I suspect, I can't recall if the beaver's tail is up in the air when they're walking or if it's being dragged. So there may be some smoothing. If it's being dragged, there may be some smoothing behind it as it walks along this trackway. Interesting things that would tell you about the type of animal moving here. Again, walking here. Again, Beaver Lodge, trees being cut down by beavers. They're beavers. But if one measured the distance between each print, that would give you a little more data about the type of animal. Let's assume it's a beaver, but it would also tell us the size of the beavers, okay, when you measure trackways. Okay, that gives you valuable information about that. And those techniques are used in just a lot of areas when you have trackways and you want to determine how the size of the animal that walked on the trackway, like for instance a dinosaur or something like that. Okay, now we have here one of my favorite pieces of vegetation, which is a cattail. And these are in a riparian environment. And here's a beautiful view of a cattail here that's lost all its fuzz. That's a technical term. And these are just a beautiful object of nature. Cattails, and they grow in a riparian environment, as we have here. Water, we can see them all through here. Beautiful. Okay, well, this is quite interesting. Look at the height of these beaver gnawings up here. That's probably more than 4 feet high. I seriously doubt that the beaver can stretch out that far. Now, they may use these lower branches that they've gnawed down as a standing, but it's very curious why they would have gnawed this at this height. I see a little scratching here, so I suspect that, you know, that's using their nails to grab hold a little bit. An interesting fact that I learned when I was working at Digital, there were a lot of people there that graduated from MIT, and I remember seeing their class rings, and I always noticed that it had a beaver on it, and I said, well, why would your class ring have a beaver on it? And they all respond with the same message, that the beaver is nature's engineer. And certainly MIT produces a lot of engineers, so their class mascot, let's say, is the beaver, and you'll see beavers on MIT rings. Now, I've been looking around here for deer prints. It just feels to me like there would be a lot of deer around here, and I haven't seen any deer prints, but what I did find that shows me there's deer. Let's see. Okay, I should make mention here that this is really more for advanced hikers, people that don't mind a little bushwhacking, perhaps getting your feet wet, because we have not found any trails here. We found, the only trails that I found appear to be a beaver trail and possibly deer trail, but I haven't seen any deer prints. But what I did find here is the sign of a deer, and there is some deer dung right here. So sure enough, there's deer around here, and I know deer dung when I see it. Okay, and that's right there. And so that tells me this is a favored backyard of beavers, deer, lots of birds, and this would make just a great place to get out and explore. This was the first time that I've been here, and I'm kind of flabbergasted, having driven by this area for the last 30 years, and now I finally walked into it. Well, we're walking further into the property from Harwood Road, and the beavers have really been working pretty energetically. Here I am on looks like a 12, 16-inch diameter poplar tree that they've taken down, and they're working over here and over in the corner. So these are, they're working very hard. I'd like to show you over here, we ran into a apple tree. Now, as you know, Littleton we are really known for our apples. And it's interesting to run into an apple tree in the middle of what looks like a swamp. However, they did say this is a meadow, so might this have been a former meadow that perhaps had some apple trees in it? I don't know. Now, I do know deer like apples. Okay, so that would explain to me why we might have seen some traces of deer. I'm going to attempt to take a bite out of one of these apples. Let's see. This looks... Okay. Going to shine it up best we can. This is the only apple tree we've seen here. That's not to say there aren't more. And we're probably, you can see the nine-tails 20 feet away. So we're, okay, here we go. This is a good apple. This is a delicious apple, actually. Mark just had one, so I needed someone to do my taste testing first, just in case there was a problem. Well, let's see what else we can find. Okay, look what we have here. Well, this looks like a bluebird house that's seen somewhat better days. Now, it's obviously a man-made object that was put here in hopes of attracting a bluebird or some other bird species. It looks like there's some stuff inside. Now, I've learned from experience to never stand in front of these because you don't quite know what's going to jump out. Now, one thing I've always learned to do, and we're at the end of the season now, okay, meaning, hello there, meaning any young animals have fledged at this point. So I'm going to open this up. Now, the first thing that I do when I check a bird box is I'll always wrap on the side. And I'll give it a little time because you never know what's going to stick its head out there. Could be a snake. I wouldn't expect to see a bird in here right now, but a snake, mice, something I see regularly in my bluebird boxes at home are flying squirrels. Flying squirrels seem to love these. Okay, so I am now going to open this. Okay, we're going to see what's in here. Okay, I'm going to turn this nail. All right, kind of freaks me out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to open it. All right. Okay, something's in there. Something's living in there. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me get some precision tools here. Okay, I'm gonna empty the nest, and this is something that I would normally do at home anyway, just to clear it out so it doesn't rot. So let's see what comes out, if anything. This nest, it looks like there's it actually looks like there's a number of nests here, that on the bottom, this nest here, from what I've seen in this area, bluebird nests around here tend to be padded with white pine needles. So this wouldn't surprise me if that is a bluebird nest under here, but there's something else going on here that's using cat-o'-nine-tails to feather their bed. Okay, here we go. I don't want to. Okay, we're emptying it out. And I would do this, I clean out my boxes every year. I definitely make sure they're cleaned out before nesting season, always in hopes of getting a bluebird. Okay, I'm not seeing anything in here, no snakes, no mice, no eggshells. I don't see any eggshells. Usually if I see in the springtime a mouse nest, like I'll clear these out late March, early April, something like that. And if I see a mouse nest there, or some type of nest that doesn't look like a bird's nest, I will usually leave it there and just give the nest up to whatever laid dibs on it. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. Okay. All right, so this is empty. This seems empty. So this is ready to go next year. Okay, that's ready to go. So someone can lay claim on this nest, this box, for their backyard next year. And this particular box, by the way, does look like a bluebird box in that it has the hole to be about 1 inch in diameter, which is pretty much optimal for a bluebird. It also has these little pieces of wood put on them, and the reason these are put on is because for a bluebird, or for that matter any nesting bird in a box, one of its biggest predators is a raccoon. So a raccoon will tend to put its arm in the box, and this makes it difficult for the raccoon to extend all the way down to the bottom of the box. So these are like a raccoon guard. So okay, great. I didn't get too freaked out, and that's ready to go next year. Okay. Okay, that pretty much wraps up our little jaunt through Bumblebee Meadow. This was a place that we weren't expecting. We were well aware that there's no well-defined trails in here. But look at what we ran into. We ran into the beaver dam, the beaver activity, the deer activity, an apple tree, and a number of different bird species. The myrtle warbler was one. This was an absolutely delight. This is a fairly new addition to the Littleton Conservation Trail System. I'll remind you that there are no trails, so you need to take care. You're going to get a little wet being in here, and the footing is not great. But other than that, it makes for a delightful walk in the woods. And this is just another part of Littleton that's in your backyard.